Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. We're going to look at the beginning of the war now. I hope everybody's staying safe, staying healthy. Obviously, you guys know that we're close to the rest of the school year, so we're just going to keep pushing through as we would usually and see how far we can get, okay? Obviously, I'm not going to make you guys do a do now today, but I just want you to think about this. So the 5 causes, right? Militarism, alliance, nationalism, imperialism, and then the assassination. So this might be something that you see again before we end this unit. And what, in your opinion, what was the most important cause of World War I and why? Okay? And then the next one is who makes up the 2 sides that would fight in World War I? What are they called? So remember, it was the Triple Alliance and the Triple Entente. So the Triple Alliance, we have Germany, we have Italy, we have Austria-Hungary. And on the Triple Entente, we have Russia, Britain, and France. When the war begins, okay, Italy is no longer a part of it. Italy's out. Okay, the alliance that was created by Germany and Austria and Italy was that if ever one of those countries were attacked, the others would come to their aid. But Italy thought, well, wait a second. Austria was never attacked. Germany was never attacked. We're staying out of this. And eventually, Italy is going to change sides and join the Allies. Remember, the war starts, the Triple Alliance becomes known as the Central Powers because of their location in the middle of Europe. And then on the other side, you have the Allies. You have Russia, you have France, you have Britain. Italy's going to join them, and some other countries are going to join them as well. All right, so we're going to get into it here. So one of the biggest pieces of World War I is a German strategy, and it's called the Schlieffen Plan. And this is this idea of militarism. Now, this plan is crafted in the 1800s. Okay, it was created originally by Otto von Bismarck. Okay, that guy we've talked about a few times. He knew that the greatest threat to Germany was an alliance between Russia and France because it would put Germany right in the middle. So he creates this plan called, again, it comes up by Otto von Bismarck is the brainchild. Von Schlieffen's the one who puts it all together. Von Schlieffen dies before World War I. But the Germans are still going to use this plan, but they don't know how to execute it because von Schlieffen and Bismarck were the ones who came up with this whole thing. So there's a couple steps to it. The first step, they have to invade Belgium. Belgium's neutral. The Germans understood that if they invaded Belgium, that there was a good chance that Britain was going to be involved. Okay? So after the Archduke is assassinated, I'm going back a little bit here, after the Archduke is assassinated, we have a month where there's this negotiation between all the different countries about what's going to happen. And, you know, Germany's calling France, are you going to do anything? Russia, are you going to do anything? What can we do to prevent this from happening? Germany's on the phone with Britain like, hey, listen, can we avoid this? They're sending messages back and forth. And Britain's like, we're staying out. This has nothing to do with us. We want to remain isolated. We're on this island. We want to stay away from everything. But they had their own alliance with Belgium that said if Belgium was ever attacked, that they would get in and defend Belgium. So as Germany is going to execute the Schlieffen Plan, the first step is to invade Belgium. But the Germans know that if they invade Belgium, they're going to bring the British in. But they also know that Russia's already moving their troops west to their borders, so they have to act. Okay, we have all these declarations of war going on. So they invade Belgium, and the minute the first German soldier steps foot in Belgium, Britain declares war on Germany. Okay? Now they think that they can get through Belgium within a day. It doesn't happen. Okay, it takes them much longer. The Belgians put up a fight. Okay? When they go into Belgium, they go through one of the only fortified areas, right? They have basically forts in Belgium, and the Germans try to go through these forts, and the Belgians put up a fight. Okay? So they got to use a lot more artillery. They have to use a lot more manpower than they anticipated. So they are slowed right out of the gate. Okay? They finally get through Belgium. And after they go through Belgium, the next part is we have to defeat France. Okay? And they're very descriptive, and they are very to the point about what they want to do. They believe that they have to win in France in 950 hours, about 6 weeks. We have 6 weeks to take over France. Okay, and that's very important because that's 6 weeks. They think it's going to take Russia 6 weeks to get their troops in gear to come and fight. Okay? Okay, just like with Belgium, it goes a little longer than planned. And the third step is after we have defeated Belgium and after we've defeated France, we've taken over Paris, we now have to move all of our resources and all of our soldiers onto the eastern front where the Russians are. Okay, so I know this map is kind of hard to see, but basically you're going to come around to the top, you're going to come through Belgium, okay, you're going to have all these different waves of people, and you're going to surround Paris, and you're going to take Paris over, and that's how you're going to win the first wave with the Schlieffen plan, and then you're going to be able to send everything else to the other side. Alright, so I talked a little bit about this. Okay, but here's why it fails. Number one, the commander of the German army, his name is Helmut von Moltke. Alright, he leads his troop into the heavily guarded area of Belgium. Okay, they share a border with Germany. They encounter much more resistance than expected. It's going to take them longer than they believe that they can get through Belgium. The third problem, the Russians are moving quicker than expected. Now remember, Russia has this huge army. Okay, but they have zero organization, they don't have enough weapons, but they also know that they have to be there to help Serbia. Okay, they have to be there to help France, so they move quicker than the Germans think they can. Okay? The other problem for the Germans is, well, now the British are involved. So now instead of just going through Belgium and fighting the French, which Germany versus France is pretty much a mismatch, and Germany would win, the British are now involved. So they have another enemy that's added to their plate. Okay? So the theory behind the plan sounds good, but the execution, because they don't have the proper people in place to execute it, makes it pretty much a failure. The Battle of the Marne is kind of where the Schlieffen plan goes to die. All right? So the French defeat the Germans at the Battle of Marne, one of the bloodiest battles of World War I, and the Germans are getting very close to Paris. Like, this might work. This plan might, in fact, work. They're within about 10 miles of getting to Paris. And again, if you control if you can get the capital city of a country, you basically win. The French, along with help from the British, are going to push the Germans back, and this is going to prove that neither side can gain a significant advantage, and this is going to be much longer than they anticipated. All right? You know, there's been books written that they thought that this was going to start in the summer and end before the fall was over. Okay? The end of July to October, this will be over and done with, no big deal. Okay, but this kind of puts a damper on those hopes. This is going to go on much longer than anticipated. All right, so now we got the Russians. The Russians are able to mobilize by August 13th, which is about a month quicker than the Germans had anticipated. Okay, so now if you think about it, I know actually I don't have one, but okay, if Germany's in the middle, France is over here, and Russia's over here, they have their resources are fighting over here in France. Okay, as the Russians start to move to the west, the Germans have to split their forces. So now, the one thing that Germany had to avoid, or had hoped to avoid, was fighting a two-front war. Well, now that's exactly what they have, a two-front war fighting on both sides. Okay? So one of the first clashes between the Germans and the Russians is at a place called Tannenberg. And at the Battle of Tannenberg, in Poland, okay, both countries kind of want Poland, the Russians are defeated, and they lose about 30,000 people, okay, within about a day and a half. And then 92,000 are taken prisoner. So this kind of shows that, yeah, Russia's got this big army. They can keep throwing people at the problem. They're not trained. They don't have technology. All right, so they don't have the resources to get there. Russia, and we'll talk about this probably in a couple weeks, Russia was the largest country in terms of size, but one of the most poorly advanced countries. They didn't have the railroad system that these other countries had. They didn't have the weapons that these other countries had. Hello, dog. So they're behind everybody else. So imagine you're on the battlefield and you're Russian. Okay, you get the call. You gotta go at such a place, such a time, such a date. But you're like, well, but wait a second. I don't have a uniform. I don't have a gun. I don't have a way of getting there. There's no train. The Russians literally showed up to the fights, sometimes in taxi cabs. Okay, and they would stand there without a gun, and they would be in the middle of World War I, the Great War, with no weapons, and they would wait for people to die to pick up their weapons so they had something to fight with. Okay, so if you're Russia, you can't lose 120,000 people every time you go to battle. That's crazy. Okay, so the people in Russia are starting to get a little aggravated as this is happening. They don't want to be a part of this. This had nothing to do with them. This is between, in their mind, this is between Austria and Serbia. Okay? That alliance with Serbia, well, we don't want to fight. Okay? We don't want to fight Germany. We don't want to help France. But they're kind of now forced to do that. So we're going into the trenches now. Okay? So the trenches are mainly fought on the Western Front, on the border between France and Germany and Belgium. Okay, it's a 500-mile stretch from Switzerland to the North Sea. If you're in a class right now, I'll show you a map, but I don't have a map in my basement, so I can't really show you that. Okay, and basically what would happen is they would have, both sides would have a trench. Okay, again, if we were in the classroom, you can imagine we have the back of the room, the front of the room, and the desks are in the middle. Okay, and that middle area where the desks would be, we call no man's land. And in no man's land, you'd have barbed wire, landmines, dead bodies, very little vegetation, okay, no grass because they're just constantly bombarding the other side of the shells. And they didn't really understand how to fight this. Okay, so if I'm on one side of the trench, you're on the other side of the trench, and I tell my soldiers, all right, go get the other trench. They would like hop out of their trench and run the other side, while the other side is blasting them with a machine gun. So now that I've lost most of my men trying to do that, then the next side is going to say, all right, go get their trench. Well, now I'm going to sit here with my guys that are left, waiting with a machine gun to blast you. So in trench warfare, neither side gains an advantage. It's almost impossible because they don't understand what they're doing. They're just sending people to a problem. No stress. Go run and get the other side while you're trying to like hop over landmines and giant craters in the ground from different shells coming over and poison gas coming at you while they're shooting machine guns at you. Okay. So we have the introduction of new weapons. Okay, to kind of combat trench warfare. Okay, I mentioned the machine gun. Eventually, you're going to have the tank. But again, with the tank, they don't know how to use the tank. Okay, it's when you watch the video, you'll see how tanks was a great idea, but it really was kind of too early in its time for it to be used. Poison gas, another thing. Okay, you could do a lot of damage with poison gas if it was done right. Okay, if the wind was blowing in your direction, you send all the poison gas to the side, that was going to come right back to you. That happened a lot. Okay, but when poison gas worked, okay, people became blind. Okay, there was some stuff called mustard gas that would get on your skin and basically burn you. Some of the stuff you would breathe and it would, eat your insides. Okay, so they start to make gas masks and different things like that to combat poison gas. Just one thing with poison gas, and I think this is in the video. Hitler, again, who's Austrian, but joins the German army, is involved in one of these poison gas attacks and nearly dies from the poison gas. Okay, but that doesn't happen. All right, so let's look at what it looks like in the trenches. Okay, no man's land. That's what you're fighting for. Lovely. Okay, this would be living in the trenches. Okay, you got this little window to look at it, the other side's firing at you. Okay, this would be a picture going down into the path of the trench. Okay, you notice there's some bodies. Okay, are they sleeping or they're dead? We don't know. And this guy, okay, he's on a ledge, kind of peeking out to see what's happening on this side. Eventually, he's going to have to stand up or get high enough so he can fire. All right, think about the danger involved with that. Trench life. Okay, think about it. If you're living in a trench like this is your home. Okay, you're bathing in mud. You're standing in mud all day, mud and standing water. Okay, think about standing water. What breeds and standing water? Bugs, mosquitoes, all kinds of diseases, right? Okay, so when you're living like this, the rain has nowhere to go. It goes into the trench, right? The lowest place. So you're standing this all day, every day. You might develop something called trench foot. This usually gets a big reaction in class. It's gross, it's nasty. Okay, basically trench foot, it's a bacteria that just eats away at your skin, as you can see. Okay, this is another example of trench foot. Okay, trench foot can affect any part of your body. So use your imaginations. All right, so some vocabulary words we're going to see, and I'm going to send out a sheet probably next week of the vocabulary words. So you got belligerent. Belligerent means to be engaged in fighting or war. Propaganda, information that's spread to try to influence another side, okay, influence your opinion, to kind of get people to do things that you want to do. A lot of propaganda in politics, a lot of propaganda during war, okay, to get people to buy into this idea of fighting. Okay, World War I became known as a war of attrition. Basically, neither side can gain an advantage. There's a constant stalemate. Okay, you're just kind of trying to wear down the other side, but the other side's trying to wear you down as well. Okay, trench, a ditch dug to protect soldiers, and contraband, goods that may not be legally transported, especially during war. Okay, so this last one, this contraband, is going to be very important as we go forward. If you are a neutral country, and I'm putting that in quotes, a neutral country, and you have said we are out of the war, do you think that you could send supplies to a country that's in the war? Okay, for example, if you're the United States, we're going to foreshadow here a little bit, if you're the United States and you have decided that you are neutral, you are not involved in this, can you send weapons to Britain? How might Germany look at that if you send weapons to Britain? Okay, Germany's going to be like, wait a second, you're neutral. Okay, you can't be doing that kind of stuff. Okay, some people and places. Winston Churchill, he's the head of the British Navy. Okay, he's going to be a big deal come World War II. Okay, this instance, he's a big deal in World War I. He's the commander of the Navy. Okay, Verdun and Battle of Somme are battlegrounds in the German and French and English, resulting in the loss of nearly 2 million soldiers. Okay, in these three battles, they lose 2 million soldiers. Okay, not only, and then think about the number of non-combatants, civilians that are killed during this time as well. Okay, this is the last one of information, so this is kind of interesting. Britain has the world's strongest navy. Germany's trying to be equal to them. Remember we talked about idea of shipbuilding and trying to building up their navy to the same place that the British were. So both sides are going to blockade the other. And to make their blockade work, they set up, they use submarines to blockade the other side, prevent materials coming in and leaving, right? So submarines are introduced by the Germans, and the Germans are going to start to sink all enemy ships. Any ship that they believe may be carrying materials that are going to be used to aid the Allies, they are going to start to sink. Okay? Again, foreshadowing. Okay? Think about that word contraband. Think about how the Germans are going to start acting. And then the last one, just some questions I want you to think about. You don't have to answer them, just think about them. What was the Schlieffen Plan like? Why did it fail? What was trench warfare like? And then the last one's probably the biggest one. I want you to think about this. I probably even put this on the discussion board. How might the use of submarines hurt the Germans in the war? Explain your answer. So that will be a discussion question for next class. I'll put it on. I'll post it for you to answer after you watch the PowerPoint. All right. Again, keep up. All right. Hello, Lucas. Keep up the good work. keep submitting your assignments. If you have any problems, any questions, please let me know. Thank you and have a great day.